What's up, guys? Max here, back with a brand new episode of the Scuttlebutt Show. I hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you're having a great day. It is Monday, September 19th, 1500 Pacific Standard Time when we go live today to talk about one very, very important issue. If you're out there, I'd love to hear from you. Tune in, chime in the chat. Let me know that you're out there. There is something brewing amongst the deck plates that I want to talk about today. Very serious. It is the only thing that we're going to talk about today. We might get out of here a little bit early today, but there is just one singular issue that I want to focus on today. We're going to be reacting to a pretty big video, and we're going to get to that in just a second. I hope you all had a great weekend out there. I had a fantastic weekend hanging out with the Honor Foundation on Saturday, the program that put this show into motion and made it exist today. Some really great people, some really cool veterans. And if you guys want more information on the Honor Foundation and the Swim for Soft that I went to and attended this weekend, I didn't swim it myself, but I attended it. Go check that out. I strongly encourage it. Strongly encourage it. It was a lot of fun. And then on Sunday, I went out to Balboa Park here in San Diego with my wife, and I checked out a screening of a new film called Courage, made by a somewhat local filmmaker. He's living up in NorCal now, but a non-veteran person from the film industry who has a passion for the military community and veterans, who premiered their film Courage about prisoners of war, both in World War II and Vietnam. It featured true stories of local San Diego veterans and civilians who were detained during those wars, and they were there present for a discussion afterwards, and it was fantastic. I think it's incredibly important to honor all those who've served past, present, and future, especially those who served in wars overseas, and even more especially those who spend time as prisoners of war. What could be more terrifying and selfless than giving up 5, 6, 7, 8 years of your life detained overseas in Vietnam, Korea, Europe, and then wait to be returned with honor to your home country? And it was a joy to be able to go see that film. So congratulations to Bill Lowe, the filmmaker. You can look him up, Billowe, filmmaker who created Courage, and you guys can go check that out. It's heading to film festivals now and will hopefully be available to watch sometime in the near future. So before we jump into today's big story that we're going to talk about, this one singular issue, and it is serious, and then we're going to wrap it up because that's how important I think this is. I want to say what's up to Hiram in the chat. It is great to see you. Thank you for your kind words and tuning in, and everybody else out there who's tuning in. Drop me a comment, like, whatever you guys want to do. And let's go ahead and jump into the story today, because this is blowing my mind right now. Truly, this is blowing my mind. MC, what's up? Jumping in with a $1.99 super chat right there. That's what I'm talking about. Great to see you in the clutch. Right before we jump into the story, it is fantastic to see you out there. I'm glad to know that you're listening. I hope that this story gets people fired up to go share and investigate this and get to the bottom of it. Now, I'm not gonna tell you guys that this is or is not anything. I'm just going to tell you what information is being put out there. And after last week's story talking about the Army and the Secretary of the Army, I want to just remind you guys, right before we jump into this, I want to remind you guys that last week we had the story of the Secretary of the Army coming out and saying that the biggest problem with the Army recruiting right now, the reason nobody's joining, is bad press coverage. Did not say anything about any real issues. Said the number one problem plaguing the Army recruiting division is bad press coverage. Well, maybe if the focus was on actual bad things happening, you could make some progress. But if you just keep going that the biggest problem is you're not covering enough stuff up, then that's a really frightening thought. That video is blowing up over on TikTok. If you guys don't follow me across all the different social medias, consider checking that out. If you don't have a TikTok, I totally understand. They're not exactly the good guys out there, but if you do have one, please go give me a follow. Let's talk about it. You guys might remember this from a few weeks ago. This is Denisha Montgomery that you're looking at on your screen right now if you're listening on the podcast. This is a soldier, a young female soldier, and this photo of her was circulated a few weeks ago of her holding a .240. She is a military police officer, or was, out there in Germany. Joined the Army not too long ago, and she was found deceased in her barracks room. We covered this story, and I said, gosh, I hope that this was nothing nefarious, or that we get some answers on this for the family. Well, this story has taken a frightening turn. The family has aired a new video claiming that they believe that their daughter was murdered, but the Army is claiming it was self-inflicted. Let's talk about it, and then let's go watch a video that if you have not seen in its entirety, you might find pretty shocking. Weeks before a soldier was found dead in her barracks room in Germany this summer, she sent a video to her parents showing her crying and covered in bruises, and we're going to talk about that. Denisha Montgomery, a specialist or an E4 in the Army, was found dead on August 9th, and her death was announced in a press release from U.S. Army Europe and Africa. The soldier was found unresponsive in her barracks room on Lucius Clay Kaserne in Wiesbaden, I think is how you say that. The 27-year-old mother and wife, so she was a mother, she had a child, and she was married, was found dead, and the Army said that they believe her death was suicide by suffocation. Suicide by suffocation. And that's the story that her family got. Specialist Denisha Montgomery Smith's death is a tragedy, and our heartfelt condolences go out to her family, O'Donnell said in a statement. O'Donnell is Colonel Martin O'Donnell, the spokesperson for Army Europe and Africa. The Army has not ruled anything out with regards to the cause of death, as the matter is under investigation by the Department of Army Criminal Investigative Division, the CID. But they did say, though, even though you're not supposed to talk about an active investigation, that they believe it was suicide by suffocation. Let's jump over now, and I want to watch this video with you guys, and then we're going to talk more about this situation here. So we're going to go in and we're going to watch this video. It's long, which is why I made this the only story of today, but it's shocking. I really want everyone out there who's listening to this to know about this. Let's start the video.
We start tonight with a family demanding answers after their daughter, a military police officer, died while serving overseas. This is Denisha Montgomery, just 27 years old, her entire future ahead of her. A daughter, a wife, a mother, serving her country and working hard to support her kids back home. The Army calls Denisha's death a suicide, and they are investigating, but her family believes something far more sinister happened, and someone is not telling the truth.
I want to just pause for a second here to remind you all, again, and I talked about it last week, that after the Vanessa Guillen investigation concluded post discovering who killed her, she was murdered, post discovering who killed her, other investigators came in and said that a competent investigator would have solved that case almost immediately, declaring that the Army CID investigators on board Fort Hood were incompetent, incapable of handling the job, and that the Army representatives from the Public Relations Department afterwards announced that the worst thing to have happened out of the whole Vanessa Guillen situation was how the PR was managed. That's what they considered the worst part of that, was they mishandled the PR, and that they will get better at that. The next time a soldier is murdered, they'll get better at the cover-up. And now we have this.
In a moment, I'm going to be talking with two close friends of the family live about this case and the ongoing investigation. But first, we turn to investigative correspondent Rich McHugh tonight with this exclusive report.
Before we go any further, I want to let you guys know this story is from News Nation, who I'm not super familiar with their reporting, but they claim to be an unbiased, news network. They seem legit when you go to their website. I'm not sure who sponsors them or what other information. You guys can let me know in the comments, but that's who is reporting this.
Rich.
Thanks, Marnie. I've covered a lot of stories involving the military, many of them good, some of them bad. This is likely among the worst, and if not for the video that you're about to see, we might not even know about it at all.
27-year-old Denisha Montgomery pursued her dreams and joined the Army 2 years ago.
I gotta protect my mama and my sister.
She was determined to help provide for her 3 young boys. Assigned to the 139th Military Police Company at Fort Stewart, this summer when she was stationed in Wiesbaden, Germany, her trust in the military abruptly changed.
Honey.
So the person, Rich McHugh here, who's doing the reporting, has been all over Twitter talking about this Denisha Montgomery issue. And if you guys want to look up more information and you're on Twitter or on social media, you can look up Denisha Montgomery. It's Denisha Montgomery, Montegomery, and you can find out more information. So this is her. We're about to cut to her on a phone call, on a voice, like a FaceTime or whatever, with her family while she's stationed overseas in their back CONUS, continental U.S.
Mom, this is all I wanted to do.
On July 19th, she made a frantic video call to her family and asked them to record it.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Jada. Hey,
I
Mom.
love you,
I just want to
Bro-
come home. Look what they did to me.
Brooklyn.
So if you're listening on the podcast, and I'll just describe it to you now, she is showing bruises on her body, bruises and puncture wounds that she claims she was stabbed. And she's describing the incident. We're going to get into it. But she's got pretty serious, very large bruising all over her upper body.
Oh my god.
She had serious bruises, open wounds on her body.
What is that from?
I don't know.
That looks like a knife or something.
In this 12-minute video call with her family, she said she went with a group of military police from her unit off base to a water park, said they had been drinking, and on the car ride back, they assaulted her.
They choked me out. Look, they was doing it to me in the car. I kept telling them, I was like, I can't breathe. I was like, I can't breathe. I was gasping for air. I was like, bro, I ain't never been so scared in my life. I thought I was going to die in the car, bro.
That evening, while she was on the video call, her family called the Red Cross and reported what she had told them, that 4 military police officers assaulted and strangulated her.
So I was like,
Before we continue, I'll just pause the video again here. Remember, we're talking about the military police, right? We're talking about military police officers, the people who are meant to uphold the Army's core values against misbehavior, inappropriate stuff, crime going on. The people who are supposed to investigate investigate when these wrongdoings occur. They are the ones who are being accused in this case of basically beating her up in a van. I don't know if it's supposed to be hazing. I think there's some allegations made in this video, but whatever the cause of it was, whatever the argument was to start, these are Army, no matter which way you slice it, these are Army military police that are under the microscope here.
out of the car, but they wouldn't let me out of the car. And then all this happened.
In and out of tears on the call, she vowed to report her assault the next day.
I'm going to talk to CID tomorrow.
And what? Tell them that you just want to get out, or what?
I'm telling them that I don't want to be here no more. I'll do whatever I have to do, Mom. I'm coming.
So she's saying she's going to go talk to CID, the higher echelon that she probably falls under for military police, but that's going to include, like detectives, investigators, higher authorities that can intervene on her behalf and maybe take care of her. So think about that. Let's just imagine for a second, as this video continues and the reporting on here continues and the witness statements continue, that you're the family, your child, your family member, your service member is stationed overseas. You get a phone call like this, and days later you find out they're deceased. That would be very troubling, I think, for anybody.
I can't be here no more. I don't trust them. I don't trust my leadership. I don't want to be here with none of them no more.
In a text message to her uncle the next day, she wrote, "They told me if I report an assault, I'll be charged with assault too because I mushed the female and bit the male that was choking me. 21 days."
So the suggestion there is that she was in a fight in the back of his van. She says that they did this to her. She doesn't know why it happened, but that she fought back. And this is what she's saying, that she fought back and maybe injured some of the other people. And they said, well, if you report us, we'll report you. And you're going down because it's our word against yours. And there's more of us than there are you.
Later, on August 9th, Denisha Montgomery was found dead in her barrack. That same day, the Army told Denisha Montgomery's family that she took her own life.
They said that we're sorry to inform you that your daughter has committed suicide by suffocation.
That's her mother, Heather, speaking. And it is, for the family, probably very good that they had this recording, because if they didn't have this video recorded days earlier, only a couple days earlier, from that FaceTime or that Zoom call or whatever it was, they would really have nothing to bring any sort of attention to this case. It would just be hearsay versus hearsay. But they have this video, they have the bruises, they have her on video kind of coming clean to her parents about what's going on, that she's going to go talk to CID. So at least there's a path of questioning that you could then follow. Like, did she talk to CID? Did anybody hear anything about this? Was there any grumblings around the command? Were the rumors flying around? That's where I would start, is asking all the people who were at the water park. I would go to the water park and grab the surveillance video. I would check the van that they were driving in for any sort of forensics. And if I was an investigator, that's what I would do. That's where I would start. Witness statements, but it's the Army, so they will probably just go dirt to dirt hua, case closed.
And I said, how do you suffocate yourself?
I know that my daughter wouldn't kill herself.
No doubt in your mind.
No doubt in my mind. I know my kid, man.
The Army released a statement 5 days later confirming Denisha Montgomery was found unresponsive in her barrack and said, the incident is currently under investigation by U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division.
But it doesn't make any sense. How are you still investigating when you prematurely said she committed suicide? That tells me that you've already have a determination.
So that's her aunt, Tamika. And I completely agree. That's kind of what I said at the beginning of this video, which is, why would you tell her family that you believe her death was a suicide and then say you can't comment on an ongoing investigation? It's already been mishandled as far as I'm concerned. And when you have something like that, when you have that kind of, suggestion of incompetence, I think it's important to remove the current investigators and bring in somebody independent. Recuse, I think is the word, yourself from the situation. They should remove the commander. They should remove anybody in that chain of command and go with an independent group of investigators. I mean, I would send if I was the Army, if it was me, I would send, I would leave no stone unturned. I would invest every cent that's available from the budget of CID, and I would send the best investigators and independent investigators, outside investigators over there to absolutely exhaust every option of what might have happened, because the Army is in so much trouble as it is regarding their reputation for taking care of their troops and their leadership, that to fumble this, which I'm sure they will after everything, is kind of a joke. It's almost borderline intentional at this point.
Tamika Light is Denisha Montgomery's aunt. She served 13 years as an Army sergeant and was awarded the Purple Heart.
Something in the back of my mind told me that when she was attacked on the 19th of July, that there was something bigger at play. Something told me that her life was in danger.
None of Denisha's family.
That's crazy too, that her aunt is a veteran and Purple Heart recipient. This is I guess, given now the video and the action the family's taking and her aunt's prior service, and it's certainly the wrong family to try to do this to if you're the Army. They look like they're not going to take this lightly, not going to take this laying down. They're going to fight for answers.
They believe she took her own life. Her husband, Joshua.
I know she didn't commit suicide.
No doubt in your mind.
No doubt in my mind.
Her sister, Jada.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either.
Do you think your sister was murdered?
I do. It's just by who and when.
And how many? And how many knew about it and how many covered it up?
I don't know what she knew, but it had to be too much. Like I said, my daughter.
To me, it sounds as simple as she got into it somehow with some of her battle buddies. I throw that word around kind of sarcastically at this point, and they did it. I mean, I could believe allegedly that that's what happened. She got into some kind of fight. Some people were pissed about something, and they decided to do this. It wouldn't even be like that unusual in the military. These things do happen. Look at the SEALs who killed Logan Melgar in Africa. They just got on his bad side. They were doing some bad stuff. They thought, oh, here's somebody who's not as bad as us. There's somebody who might have a problem with us doing bad stuff. We'll just go take care of it. And it's certainly, I mean, at this point in time, with everything that I know, with everything that I've covered on this show, there is little doubt in my mind that that's possible. Absolutely possible.
They told me she was scared. I've never heard my daughter say that ever in her life. Ever. She wasn't scared of anything.
She was set to come home in 3 weeks. Sent pictures of her bags packed and waiting.
I talked to her that night, and you're not going to tell me that she was anything but happy and ready to come home.
And this video to her husband dancing to their wedding song.
And that's all we talked about is what we're going to do when she got home. The very first thing she wanted to do was go to Walmart.
I can't make sense of it. It's a nightmare.
You might think go to Walmart, but when you've been overseas for a while, even in a place like Germany, sometimes something as simple as going to Walmart, something that's familiar in the United States, can mean the world to somebody. So I just want everybody to understand, that's what I hear when I hear, oh, so you want to go to Walmart. That's like, somebody going back, oh, I want to go get my favorite cheeseburger. I want to go to my favorite coffee shop, something like that. It's very common things that people want to do when they get back from overseas.
Every day I wake up, it's a nightmare.
One giant piece of the puzzle, her sister says, comes from what the military told them about what happened 3 weeks prior at the water park, before the alleged assault in the car.
The CID told us on the phone that that night at the water park, 2 individuals that were not with her tried to sexually assault her in a restroom. But they stated clearly that the people that were with her, they tried to chase them down in a sort, and they were trying to help her.
No one has inquired with the family about the assault. We have taken it upon ourselves to get justice for Denisha. We have taken it upon ourselves to collect all evidence, to show that Denisha was not suicidal, to show that she was attacked and afraid for her life, and to show that she was ready to come back home.
We have asked the Army about the
That's just horrible. I imagine that they're referring to other Americans. I don't know that for a fact or anything like that, but my gut instinct when they say that is that they're referring to other American service members at the water park. I find it less likely that Germans or others would be doing that to an American at the water park. It just sounds fishy to me that would be the case. And then also, if there was somebody who had this beef with her over something like this, and I'm not ruling out the people that she was there with too, because she says on the ride home she was attacked by those people, that they would then need access to her barracks. They would need access to base. So it kind of just on the sniff test implies that those were also Americans.
Investigation also about the alleged assault prior to her death. They declined our request for an interview, but said special agents with the Department of Army Criminal Investigation Division are investigating the death of Specialist Denisha Montgomery and would not comment further.
It's also worth noting here at this point that additionally, there's no mention of some sort of note or behavioral indicators that something like this was about to happen. No sad social media posts, nothing that normally precede a self-harm incident, which is just another, thing that leads me to believe that this was there's more than meets the eye here.
Denisha was returned to her family on August 26th. En route to her burial, people in her hometown, Elizabethtown, Kentucky, lined the roads to salute her.
My daughter came home. They didn't give me no autopsy report, no cause of death. Where's all that at?
How dare you allow my niece's death to be in vain? How dare you prematurely tell us that this strong, beautiful individual took her life when we know better? We want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. I am Denisha Montgomery Smith. That's her name, and I want everybody to say it. I am Denisha Montgomery Smith.
This family, no information from the military, no cause of death, no autopsy, a lot of evidence to suggest that foul play happened, and so many questions yet to be answered tonight, Marnie.
This is just the beginning, Rich. You and I both know this investigation will take a long time, but with the pressure from this family for answers, we're going to stay on this. Eye-opening and heartbreaking. Rich McHugh with this exclusive report tonight. Rich, thank you. I want to bring in Amy Frank now. She's the founder of Never Alone, and Lindsay Knapp, executive director of Combat Sexual Assault, both representing the family of Denisha Montgomery tonight. And I want to start, ladies, by thanking you and sending my condolences to the family of Denisha, and also begin with, we've reached out to the Army. Rich included their response. They are investigating, but beyond that, they are not saying anything. Lindsay, I want to start with you. You say the military was too quick to call this a suicide. Why?
Well, because what we have is we've got a service member who was afraid for her life and who was assaulted 21 days prior to her death. Now, they've told you that they're investigating, which is more information that they've given us. I have personally reached out to the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Army, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley. I've reached out to the special agent in charge of this case. I've reached out to CID headquarters. And I have reached out to the 16th Military Police Brigade Commander to get an update on this case. They have given us nothing. The only thing that they've given us is let the family know that this was a suicide. However, all evidence to the contrary. We have this video where she's reporting that she was assaulted by 4 other cops. So I've got a cop who's assaulted by 4 other cops who then reported it to the cops, and then the cops did nothing. So what we're calling for now is that the FBI immediately take this case over, because what the military has shown us is that they are unable, ill-equipped, or unwilling to take this case and give Denisha Montgomery Smith the justice that she deserves.
I want to take people back to July 19th. And Amy, let's bring you in here.
In what course of education for an investigator do you walk into a room, take one look at the situation and go, this looks like this. We just will stop here. Does that ever happen? How many cases out there have you heard of where people stage suicides? How many murders have you seen that were just staged suicides? They do the trajectory of a weapon. They do the blood splatter on the wall. They do, search for DNA under their fingernails. I mean, I could do this. I could figure this stuff out better than it sounds like the Army can. And I've just watched the first 48 enough times and enough, murder mystery shows. And it seems like the Army's so quick to just write this one off. This is just another example of why I say when the Army talks about taking care of their people, it's not that I have a problem with the message. It's that I don't believe Army leadership cares. And what's even more shocking is that we're effectively in peacetime. The Army's not deploying to combat. Conventional forces are not deploying on broad scales to combat. There is lots of time and energy that can be focused on preventing stuff like this and improving the lives of troops, especially following a 20-year war on terror. And yet it seems like exactly the opposite is the case. We're going exactly the opposite direction. Just another thing in our world right now that feels flipped completely on its head. It's just exactly the opposite of what should be done is what leadership does. And it's really unforgivable.
Was the alleged assault that Denisha told her family about in that video, that 12-minute video on July 19th, investigated by the Army at that time? Who knew other than her family?
According to text messages from Denisha Montgomery Smith, she told her leadership. She told everybody. And the only thing that they did was remove one of the assailants from her actual room and put her as a suite mate. So one of the alleged assailants still had access to her. And then they threatened to charge her if she pursued the charges any further by saying that because she defended herself, that she would be charged as well. So to our knowledge, nobody was looking into what we would say would be an attempted murder on her life by strangulation.
What was happening in that window of time between July 19th and that video and Denisha's death, which is about 21 or so days? How much communication did she have with her family? We saw her bags were packed to come home.
She was just telling them that she was afraid and that she didn't want to speak anymore about anything because she was worried about what else was going to happen to her. And so she wanted to keep her head down and just get home where she would be safe to tell what really happened.
The fact that the Army rushed out and said that they believe that the cause of death is self-harm and that they told her family that, they've already botched the investigation. It's already been ruined because, well, I've already said it, but they've demonstrated their incompetence and their unwillingness. So just based on that one piece of information alone, this is, and maybe that's the reason. Maybe because of that first mistake by whoever declared that or made the decision to declare that, they're now trying to cover it up, because now if it's uncovered that it was obviously not that, then that's just more bad press for the Army. The Secretary of the Army recently came out and said that their number one problem is bad press. Put two and two together, you quickly arrive at a reasonable kind of decision tree to cover this up. And I totally could see that as what happened.
Lindsay, it seems as though this video, 12 minutes long, would be a key part of the investigation. The family has that video. Have the investigators with the Army contacted the family about seeing this video, asked them about some of the things Denisha had said to them prior to her death?
So once we learned that the video existed, we immediately sent that to CID and the military to aid in the investigation, because obviously we want answers and the family wants to get to the bottom of this. And so despite that, they interviewed the spouse, Josh Smith. And after seeing that video, seeing the injuries, learning that she told him directly of the attack, the only questions they had for Josh were questions such as, what was her mental health state like the last time he spoke with her? Has she ever had any suicidal ideations? They didn't ask one question about the assault on July 19th, or if Denisha thought that anybody was after her or anything like that. So it became very, very clear that even after we were submitted all of the evidence that we had to them, that, where we believed that this was not a suicide at all, that the military was still leaning in hard to the suicide narrative and not investigating any other avenue.
What about the idea, Lindsay, and you heard Denisha's dad say this in the piece a moment ago, the autopsy. Where is it? What did it say? When was it done? Can we have it?
I would love to have it. I would love some kind of communication with the military at all. They've communicated to you more than they've communicated to us. We've reached out to congressional leaders for information, to Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office. They've provided her with more information than they have provided us. Bottom line is they treated Denisha Montgomery Smith's life as if it were forfeit. She is a Black woman, mother of 3. She comes from 3 generations of Black women who served our country. Not only did she serve our country, but she's also a cop. So this is what this looks like. This is blue on blue. This is everything. They have given us no indication that they care about her or her life. Thus, we need the FBI to take over this case immediately so that this investigation is not compromised any further.
I know both of you are deeply involved with this family, this case, but other cases in the past. I will give you the final word, Amy. You're with Never Alone. What is your message to other military families tonight? What is your message to the Army about this particular case? If you could have 1 minute with them to tell them what's on your heart tonight with Denisha's death, what would you say?
This woman deserves the truth. Her family deserves the truth, just like Tim Tebow's, or excuse me, just like the other families deserve the truth. And
I think she means Pat Tillman. I'm gonna go out and say that she means Pat Tillman, who was killed in a fratricide incident, but his family was originally told it was enemy fire.
And that this is a national security crisis, and we cannot continue to allow these families and these young men and women to be murdered and murdered by suicide. It has to end. We have to have transparency and accountability. We have not seen one general officer that has violated federal law be held accountable. From General White at Fort Hood with Vanessa Guillen, no accountability of a general officer violating federal laws, not protecting their service members. It has to stop. And the president has to create an accountable, transparent military where these general officers are held accountable.
We will continue to push for answers in this case, accountability, justice, the truth. To you both, Amy and Lindsay, thank you for your time tonight, and we will continue to reach out to the Army and offer you at home the latest on this investigation. Please send our best to the family of Denisha tonight.
So I'm not going to tell you what did or didn't happen. That's not my business. I'm going to give you all my thoughts. I'm going to argue with myself here for a second, which I always like to do, and say that redeployment, or that's another word for when you return home from deployment, can be a remarkably stressful time. Suicides among active duty and veterans are at all-time highs. Do I know what happened here? I do not. I do not know. But by all indications, and with everything else coming out of the Army, I am led to believe that there's more than meets the eye to this case, and I'm going to continue to follow it. And you all can also reach out to your congressperson, your state representatives, your White House, Department of Defense, Secretary of the Army, and you can tell them what you think. I'm here on the Twitter page looking up Denisha Montgomery. Some of the top posts come from the investigative journalist Rich McHugh, who shared a picture of her and a lot of other stuff from the News Nation page. If I go to latest here and see what people are talking about, people are sharing the I am Denisha Montgomery. Somebody here says, you remember Lavina Johnson? This is the Denisha Montgomery Smith story. Don't let the U.S. Army cover this one up. That's another veteran who was, had another complex and nefarious investigation done. So this is trending all over social media. This is trending all over Twitter. We covered this story as soon as it was announced that there was a soldier found deceased in their barracks over in Germany, and I said I would follow up with more, and this is the more. This is the more part. So I am quite completely disturbed by this. According to News Nation, in a follow-up video, the support has been quite generous in regards to people sharing and getting involved. And I encourage you also to take the time and write a representative and say, hey, why is this continuing to happen? And on top of this happening, in addition to this, to stack something up, why is the Secretary of the Army coming out last week and saying that the greatest problem that the Army has is bad press, not bad behavior? So please take all that information and share it. Spread the word. This is really important. To the family of Denisha Montgomery, if you see this video and you ever want to have a discussion with me on this show, if there's anything I can do to put out the word, I'm interested in getting to the truth. And if there's people to be held accountable, then to hold those people accountable. I'm not someone who rushes to conclusions like the Army does. I like to get all the information out. The fact that there was no autopsy, the fact that there was a rush to judgment, you stack that up with the Army's tendency to do this kind of thing and then declare that their greatest problems are not behavior like this, but it's PR. It all lends to suspicion. And so please, please, please share on social media, share the word, spread the story, and maybe something can be done for the family of Denisha Montgomery, who has honorably served this nation. And they really deserve better. They really, really, really deserve a lot better in what they're getting. It's quite upsetting. So I wanted to make that today's, major big story. And that's it. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I'm going to wrap today's story up with that. So it's a lot to take in mind. It's a lot to think about. And I know that it can be some sad stuff, but everyone out there should be able to have their voice heard. If you're an American, if you're a citizen and you vote, you should be able to have your voice heard by your representatives. And if this issue is important enough to you to feel like it warrants a letter or an email to the office of your representative, then do so. I'm very strongly considering doing that immediately after this episode. As a member, I'm a lifetime member of the 16th Military Police Brigade, and this definitely is something that I feel connected to as a result of that. And because of all the stories we cover on this show, I could very much see this being something, some bad news here. So please share. I'm always seeking the truth for veterans in regards to issues like this. So please share, and please, if there's anything I can do to the family and friends of this soldier, let me know, and I will do my part. I'm gonna leave you guys with that. It's Monday. We had to talk about it. Kitty says, reminds me of Lavina Johnson. Just like that, on the Twitter feed, we saw somebody else saying that this reminds them of Lavina Johnson. I'm going to have to refresh my memory on Lavina Johnson to understand better what that is all about. Kitty says, the 16th MPs were busted last year for selling drugs on Fort Bragg. Yep, and we covered that story too. We covered that story when it happened. We've been on top of the Army's kind of bad behavior for a while now. It's nothing new. There's a lot of that going on, and it's not good. Harry Lime Pie with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Harry. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. If you, Randy Marsh says, I'd send NCIS. Yeah, you got to, it's time to send in somebody else. Just somebody else, somebody independent for sure. Please share this, guys. Clip this, share it. I'm going to post this whole thing as an individual video up on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, I encourage you, like I said, to go Google this and get more info. Kitty says, does anything crazy like this happen a lot in the Navy? You definitely hear about it more in the Army than anywhere else, that's for sure. But things like this do happen in the Navy. There are a lot of things that have been covered up in the Navy. We've talked about it. There are, for example, several years ago, there was a female who reported being sexually harassed at her command. Nothing was done, and the person who was harassing her showed up at work with a gun and shot her. And that story was kind of buried, just like many others. yeah, women in the military are not given a fair shake when it comes to this kind of stuff. These things get really poorly handled. Go to my TikTok and read some of the comments on some of my recent videos, and you'll see a lot of people saying their own anecdotes about this kind of stuff, from issues with recruiters acting badly, misbehaving, to commands covering things up. It seems to happen a lot. And that's why people like Stu Scheller are out there trying to call attention to it. And I completely support what he's doing. And anybody who's fighting for the rights of these, you know, you feel like when you're low ranking, when you're junior enlisted, like your voice doesn't matter, like your voice isn't heard, nobody's listening, and they will quickly just throw you to the wolves and let you die. And in either a mishap, an accident, crime, and it feels true. It feels true. Everybody, no. A lot of people, yes. So that's why I care so much about talking about this kind of stuff. That's it, guys. I'm going to leave you with that for today. I don't want to belabor it and keep running my mouth about things. I want everyone to just take what we've talked about already, and I want you to go forth and share it. That's what I want you to do. Post it on social media, share the story, share what you learned today, if anything, from that video and things that I said, and hopefully we get some answers for the family. I'm going to head out for the day. I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of The Scuttlebutt Show. You're all great. You're all awesome. I know you're going to go out there and do the right things. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to talking to you all very soon. And for now, folks, that's The Scuttlebutt.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.